I never permitted my son to go into the basement. When he wed a fortune hunter, I put in a fresh lock with a combination. During my absence on a work trip, my son phoned me in panic. Dad, she entered the basement, and I had anticipated this. So I initiated my strategy. Subscribe to the channel for additional tales like this, and leave a comment with the city you are viewing from. I was seated in a hotel meeting room in Chicago when my phone buzzed. The session had just concluded, and I was collecting my documents when I noticed Michael's name appear on the display. My son seldom called during work hours. He was aware of my timetable. Something was amiss. Michael, I responded, already sensing my chest constrict. Dad? She got inside. His tone was trembling. Sophia got into the basement. She figured out the combination somehow. Dad, I'm unsure what to do. The document slid from my grasp and dispersed across the sleek oak table. 25 years. 25 years of maintaining that door secured, of safeguarding what lay below, of awaiting the proper instant that never arrived. What did she observe? My tone emerged more composed than I experienced. Everything. I believe. The file drawers are ajar. Documents scattered all over. She is enraged. Dad. She is uttering awful things about you. About Mom. He halted, and I could detect her voice in the distance, piercing and furious. She wishes to speak with you. Do not hand her the phone, I stated swiftly. Michael, pay close attention. Is she still below? No. She is upstairs, striding back and forth, scanning her phone as if searching for something. I shut my eyes. At 65 years old, I had endured sufficient to recognize when a tempest was approaching. This was not merely a tempest. This was a cyclone I'd been readying for since the day Michael introduced Sophia to me 4 years ago. The instant I encountered her, I recognized it. Perhaps it was instinct. Perhaps it was the teachings life had instilled in me. But I perceived through that rehearsed grin and those deliberate praises the manner she evaluated the house during that initial supper, her gaze lingering on the vintage light fixture, the authentic wooden floors, the artworks Elizabeth had gathered through the years, the way she posed targeted inquiries about my enterprise, about retirement strategies, about what would occur to the house eventually. Elizabeth would have perceived it as well. My wife had always excelled at interpreting people compared to me, but Elizabeth was departed, had been gone for 16 years, and Michael was solitary and susceptible when Sophia discovered him. Dad, are you still on the line? I am here, son. I am reserving the earliest flight back. She is claiming you have been concealing things from me, that you lack trust in me, that you have been dominating everything. His tone faltered. Is that accurate? I sensed something fracture within my chest. After all I had accomplished, every concession, every restless night, defending what Elizabeth and I constructed together. This was the outcome. My own son doubting if I had been orchestrating him. Michael, all I have done has been to shield you. I require you to have faith in me until I return. Can you manage that quiet extended between us? In that interval, I could perceive 37 years of paternity suspended in uncertainty. The grazed knees I had patched, the football matches where I shouted until my voice grew hoarse, the university fees I had covered without reluctance, the evenings I had remained awake, assisting him through sorrow and letdown. All of it balanced against whatever venom Sophia had instilled in his ear over the past 4 years. Okay, he eventually replied. But Dad, she is truly furious. I have never witnessed her like this. Naturally, she was furious. She had just uncovered that every scheme she had meticulously assembled was founded on instability. I had ensured that the day Michael informed me he intended to propose, I will be home by evening. I informed him, do not allow her to remove anything from that basement. And Michael, do not endorse anything she presents to you. Assure me, I assure you. I ended the call and promptly accessed flight choices on my phone. My hands were quivering, not from dread precisely, but from something profounder, weariness, perhaps the burden of bearing secrets for so long, of being the custodian of a heritage that my son did not yet completely comprehend. The basement had been prohibited since Michael was a youngster. When he was small, I informed him it was hazardous, that the steps were unsteady, that there were aged chemicals down there from prior proprietors. As he matured, the justification altered. It was my personal workspace. It was filled with old corporate records that needed to remain arranged. It was where I stored items that evoked too much of his mother. None of it was completely false, but none of it was the entire reality either. After Elizabeth passed, I had devoted months examining everything, structuring our shared life into something understandable. Her garments, her accessories, her artworks, but more crucially, the papers, the testament she had compelled me to safeguard, the trust she had established with her lawyer 5 months before the illness claimed her, when she was still lucid enough to envision the future and prepare for it. Elizabeth had always been the intelligent one, the one who considered 4 steps forward. She had matured in poverty, observed her own mother forfeit everything to a scheming second spouse after her father perished. She vowed it would never occur to our family. Promise me, Carl, she had uttered. One evening in the hospital, her hand frail in mine. Promise me you will defend what we created, not for yourself, for Michael. There are individuals in this world who will view him as a financial opportunity, and he is too compassionate to detect them approaching. I had promised, and I had devoted 16 years fulfilling that promise. The trust was impenetrable. Everything, the residence, the reserves, the investment portfolios, the life coverage, all of it was secured in a trust that only Michael could utilize. Not his partner, not his prospective former partner, just Michael. Elizabeth had collaborated with the finest estate lawyer in the state to ensure there were no vulnerabilities, no methods for someone to maneuver their way into our family's stability. I had incorporated my own safeguards over the years. When Michael began courting earnestly in his late 20s, I had discreetly consulted with lawyers about premarital contracts, about how to shield assets in California, about what entitlements a spouse possessed to inherited estate. I had acquired all the knowledge necessary. When he informed me about Sophia, when he displayed the ring he had purchased with such optimism in his eyes, I had grinned and embraced him and stated I was delighted for him. Then I had contacted my lawyer and confirmed everything was recorded. Unbreakable. Indestructible. The premarital contract had been my suggestion, though I had made it appear as if it originated from the lawyer as a routine procedure for families with holdings exceeding a specific amount. Michael had been embarrassed to request Sophia to endorse it, but I had persisted. She had endorsed it with scarcely a peek, likely assuming it was merely a procedure, that she would have years to circumvent it. To persuade Michael to alter matters, she was mistaken. I embarked on the flight 4 hours later, my stomach twisting. I had messaged Michael twice. Concise notes. Hold on, I am arriving. He had replied with basic confirmations. All right, see you shortly. During the flight, I could not cease contemplating Elizabeth, about how she had foreseen this, how she had shielded our son, even from the afterlife. I desired she was present now. Desired I could hear her voice affirming I had done the correct thing. But I was solitary with this load, just as I had been solitary with it for 16 years. And now, at last, the instant I had been fearing and preparing for had come. Sophia had unlocked Pandora's container, and there was no sealing it once more. The flight seemed interminable. Every minute extended into perpetuity as I gazed out at the clouds, my thoughts replaying the past 4 years like a movie I could not halt. I had recognized something was incorrect from that initial supper. Michael had been 33 when he encountered Sophia at some benefit gathering in the city. He had returned that week radiant, discussing this remarkable woman who comprehended him, who amused him, who shared his passions. I had been guardedly hopeful. My son merited joy. After a series of unsuccessful romances in his 20s, he merited someone authentic. Then I met her. Sophia was stunning. I will concede that. 29 years old with the sort of refined look that derives from costly beauty parlors and meticulously selected attire. She had arrived for supper in a gown that likely cost more than most individuals' monthly housing, shoes that tapped commandingly across my wooden floors, her dark locks arranged in relaxed curls that appeared effortless, but surely were not. "Mr. Harlan, it is such a privilege to finally meet you," she had expressed, offering a flawlessly groomed hand. "Michael has shared so much about you in this lovely residence." The manner she had articulated residence, with just a minor stress, had been my initial alert throughout supper. She had been enchanting, inquired about my enterprise, about Elizabeth, about how Michael had matured. She had chuckled at my anecdotes, touched Michael's arm tenderly, and commended everything from the steak to the porcelain design. But I had observed her eyes. They had roamed incessantly, taking stock. When she believed no one was observing, she had inspected the silver holders on the shelf, the imported carpet in the den, the genuine oil canvases Elizabeth had cherished. I had seen her fingers graze against the granite surface in the kitchen, evaluating, estimating. After she departed that evening, Michael had been ecstatic. "She is incredible, is she not? Dad, I believe she might be the one." I had grinned and advised him to proceed slowly, to truly acquaint himself with her, internally. Warning signals were sounding so loudly I could scarcely hear my own thoughts. I had begun observing after that, truly observing. 5 months into their romance, Sophia had started offering ideas. The residents could benefit from some modernization. Did Michael not agree the kitchen was so outdated? The primary bathroom could be entirely renovated. She knew an excellent builder. Michael had referenced it to me casually one Sunday when he'd visited for a meal. "Sophia thinks we should refurbish a few spaces. She has excellent style. Dad, you should view some of the plans she has displayed to me. She had already inserted herself into possession of a residence she did not inhabit, that belonged to a trust she knew nothing about. The residence is acceptable as it is," I had stated cautiously. "Your mother and I selected every element together. I am not prepared to alter that." I had observed the spark of annoyance cross Michael's face. "Dad, it has been 16 years. Do you not think Mom would desire the residence to feel modern, to be practical for a new era?" The manipulation was subtle but potent. She was employing Elizabeth's recollection against me, portraying me as dwelling in the past, being irrational. And Michael, eager to satisfy this woman he was enamored with, could not perceive it. The ideas had persisted. Perhaps Michael should inquire about my retirement intentions. Was I contemplating reducing size? What would transpire to the residence if something occurred to me? Had I revised my testament lately? Every query came sifted through Michael, conveyed casually as if Sophia was merely being sensible, merely planning ahead. But I discerned what she was truly inquiring. When do I gain entry to the funds I had evaded? Shifted topics, maintained my responses ambiguous, and I had contacted my lawyer to confirm absolutely that every paper was sealed securely. When Michael had informed me he was going to propose, my heart had plummeted. I had viewed the ring, a lovely vintage item that had cost him $10,000 he had saved diligently. I had seen the hope in his eyes, the fragility of a man in love. "I am delighted for you, son," I had expressed, embracing him. And I was. I desired Michael to be joyful, to possess the sort of union Elizabeth and I had experienced. But I also recognized Sophia was not capable of providing him that. The ceremony had been lavish. Sophia had demanded a location that cost $50,000, blooms that cost $15,000, a gown that cost $9,000. Michael had struggled to finance it. Too proud to request my assistance, I had provided them $25,000 as a wedding present, knowing most of it would go toward settling wedding obligations. Sophia had kissed my cheek and labeled me the most benevolent father-in-law. But her eyes had been chilly, assessing. $25,000 was pleasant, but it was not the actual reward. The actual reward was situated in trust papers in my basement, and she had no notion yet that she would never contact it. After the wedding, matters had intensified. Sophia had relocated into Michael's modest apartment, the one he had acquired with his own funds from his position as a designer. Within weeks, she had begun grumbling. It was too confined. They required more area. They should relocate into the family residence with me. Consider all the space they would possess. Consider how much they would conserve on housing and services. I had terminated that immediately. The residence remains as it is. When I am gone, it will be Michael's to handle as he wishes. But while I am living, it is my domain. I had observed the rage flash across Sophia's face before she concealed it behind a strained grin. Of course, Dad. I comprehend entirely. But she had begun influencing Michael differently after that. I would overhear discussions when they visited, how I was aging, how it was not safe for me to reside alone in such a large residence. What if I fell? What if something occurred? She was persistent. I will concede that. She pursued the extended strategy. My phone vibrated. A message from Michael. She wants to contact you. Should I permit her? I responded rapidly. No. Wait until I am home. Do not interact. 3 dots emerged, then vanished, then emerged again. Okay. I could sense Michael withdrawing already, perplexed and divided between his wife and his father. Precisely what Sophia desired. The aircraft finally touched down at 7:45 p.m. I had been absent for 4 days, and in that period, everything had transformed. I seized my luggage and proceeded directly to my vehicle in extended parking. The journey home took 35 minutes. 35 minutes of practicing what I would express, how I would manage this, how I would clarify 16 years of safeguarding without sounding like the domineering father Sophia had likely depicted me as. When I arrived in the driveway, both their vehicles were present, Michael's practical Honda and Sophia's Mercedes, the one she had persuaded him to co-sign a loan for 5 months after the wedding, a $55,000 car that he was making installments on. I remained in my car for an instant, collecting resilience. Elizabeth's voice resonated in my recollection. You are stronger than you believe. Carl, shield our boy. I grasped my bag and approached the front entrance. It opened before I could insert my key. Michael stood there, appearing drained. His hair was unkempt and his eyes bloodshot. My son, who rarely displayed tension, appeared as if he had aged 6 years in one day. "Dad," he said softly. Behind him, Sophia materialized. She was attired casually, pants and a velvet top, but there was nothing casual about her demeanor. She resembled a hunter who had finally trapped her target. "Carl," she said, her voice saccharine, but with a sharpness beneath. "We need to converse." I entered my own residence, the residence Elizabeth and I had purchased 39 years ago, the residence where we had nurtured our son, the residence that contained every recollection of our life together. "Yes," I said serenely, "I believe we do." Sophia's grin was keen as a blade. She was prepared for conflict, but so was I. We sat in the den, the three of us arranged like game pieces. I occupied my customary seat, the faded leather armchair that had conformed to my form over decades. Michael sat on the sofa, balanced on the edge, as if he might need to flee at any instant. Sophia occupied the other end of the sofa, positioning her body toward me, her stance impeccable. "Managed?" "I'm going to be straightforward," Sophia said, not awaiting anyone else to speak. "I discovered papers in the basement, papers about trusts and holdings and legal safeguards that my husband knew nothing about." Michael winced at the word husband, at the way she brandished it like a tool. "Papers that involve our family are kept protected," I said evenly. "That is why the basement has always been secured." "Protected from your own son," her brow arched. "Or protected from me?" The inquiry lingered in the atmosphere. Michael was gazing at his hands. His jaw tightened firmly. He appeared as if he desired to vanish into the sofa pillows. "Both," I said, resolving there was no purpose in feigning anymore. The trust was created by Elizabeth before she passed. It shields assets from Michael's future, assets that stay distinct from marital estate. Sophia's chuckle was frigid, fragile. "Marital estate. You mean you ensured I would never have any entitlement to this family's funds? I ensured the heritage Elizabeth and I constructed would go to our son." "Yes, precisely as she planned." "Dad," Michael finally spoke, his tone strained, "you should have informed me about this. I had a right to know." The anguish in his tone cut deeper than any of Sophia's allegations. This was what I had dreaded most. Not her wrath, but his pain, his feeling of disloyalty. "You are correct," I said, meeting his gaze. "I should have. I was awaiting the appropriate time, and I continued awaiting. And then, abruptly, 4 years had elapsed. The appropriate time, Sophia echoed derisively. "Or were you awaiting to see if I would depart, hoping your son's marriage would collapse so you could retain your valuable dominance?" "I was awaiting to see if you would reveal your true nature," I said softly. "And now you have." Her face reddened. "My true nature. I love your son. I have supported him for 4 years. I have endured your distant attitudes and your scarcely hidden disapproval. I have grinned through every family meal where you treated me like I was some sort of outsider." "You are an outsider," I said, and Michael emitted a small sound of distress. "From the initial supper, you were estimating the worth of everything in this residence. You have spent 4 years attempting to manipulate Michael into obtaining access to money that is not yours and never will be." "That is not accurate," Michael said, but his tone hesitated with doubt. Sophia turned to him, her expression gentling into something that might have been persuasive if I had not seen the rigidity underneath. "Michael, darling, your father has tainted your mind against me. He has been dominating you your whole life. Can you not perceive that?" "I can perceive perfectly well," I said. "I can perceive that 5 months after the wedding, You persuaded Michael to co-sign a loan for a car that cost $55,000. A car you selected that you operate that he makes installments on. Michael's head jerked up. How do you know about that? Because I pay attention to my son. I notice when he ceases discussing saving for a residence because suddenly all his money is directed elsewhere. We required a dependable car. Sophia objected. You required a Mercedes? I maintained my tone level. Factual. Michael, how much are the monthly installments on that car? He paused. $850. And how much were you paying for your Honda before that? The one that was only 4 years old and functioned perfectly. $300? He confessed quietly. So, you are paying an extra $550 a month because Sophia needed a premium vehicle. I turned back to her. What else did you need? The designer furnishings for the apartment. The trip to Hawaii that cost $10,000. The renovated kitchen that Michael mentioned you desired for this residence. I was attempting to construct a pleasant life for us, Sophia said, but her tone had acquired a protective edge. You were expending money that was not yours and trying to determine how to access money you had never earned. I retrieved my phone and accessed my email, locating the message I had prepared before departing Chicago. I had a discussion with my lawyer today. He verified that the premarital contract you endorsed before the wedding is entirely valid and enforceable. Sophia became very motionless. What premarital contract? The one you endorsed 4 days before the wedding. The one my lawyer guided you through. The one that specifies in clear terms that all assets held in the family trust remain separate estate and that in the event of separation, neither party has any entitlement to the other's premarital assets. I observed the color drain from her face as recollection caught up with fury. She had endorsed it, barely examining it, likely thinking it was just routine paperwork. She had been so concentrated on reaching the ceremony, on securing her status, that she had not attended to the particulars. You deceived me, she murmured. I shielded my son. There is a distinction. Michael was gazing at both of us like we were unfamiliar. I do not comprehend. Sophia, you knew about the premarital agreement. We discussed it. I thought it was just a formality, she said, her tone rising. I thought your father was just being cautious. I did not think he was attempting to exclude me from everything. Everything that was never yours to begin with. I corrected. The residence is held in trust. The investments are held in trust. My life coverage policy designates Michael as the sole recipient with the payout going directly into the trust. Even if something happened to me tomorrow, you would not see a cent. The quiet that ensued was oppressive. Michael looked as if I had struck him. Sophia looked as if she desired to strike me. So that is it, Sophia said eventually. You have ensured that even if I remain married to your son for 60 years, I will never be a genuine part of this family. You were never attempting to be part of this family. I said, you were attempting to purchase your way into ease and stability without earning it. I have observed you for 4 years. Sophia, I have observed you separate Michael from his companions. I have observed you generate disputes between us over minor matters. I have observed you expend his money like it was endless while you contributed nothing. I contributed nothing. Her tone became piercing. I relinquished my apartment to relocate with him. I have supported his profession, attended his work gatherings, performed the role of the attractive wife. You have not labored a single day since the wedding. I highlighted. You informed Michael you were going to search for a position in advertising. That was 3 years ago. Where is the position? Sophia. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Michael was looking at her now, really looking. and I could see the elements aligning in his mind. The justifications about meetings that never materialized, the assurances to begin distributing resumes, the explanations why she needed just a few more months to determine what she truly desired to do. "This is unbelievable," Sophia said, rising suddenly. "You have been examining me, monitoring me like I am some kind of offender. I have been observing someone who I suspected was utilizing my son for monetary gain, and everything I have seen has confirmed that suspicion." She turned to Michael, her eyes frantic. "Are you going to permit him to speak to me like this? I am your wife?" Michael looked between us, his face ashen. "Sophia, is it true? Have you not been searching for work? I have been constructing a life with you," she said. But there was desperation infiltrating her tone now. "I have been making our home comfortable, planning for our future." "Planning for a future in my residence," I interjected. "You have raised it at least a dozen times in the past year. How much more sense it would make for you and Michael to reside here. How I was aging and needed assistance maintaining the property. How you could handle everything if you just relocated. That is called caring about family," Sophia retorted. "No," I said softly. "That is called positioning yourself to assume control of assets you think you can eventually dominate." Michael rose abruptly. "I need air. I need to reflect." He proceeded toward the rear door, stepping out onto the deck, through the glass. I could see him clutching the railing, his shoulders trembling. Sophia confronted me the moment he was gone. "You are demolishing my marriage. You demolished it yourself. The instant you decided my son was a tool to an objective, rather than a person worth loving." Her facade finally shattered entirely. "You self-righteous jerk. You think you are so honorable, protecting your precious heritage. But all you have done is ensured your son will never have a normal marriage. Never have a partner who feels like an equal. A partner who is an equal would not need access to money she did not earn, would not need control of assets built by people who died before she ever met their son. I could take you to court," she snarled. "Contest the trust, the premarital agreement, all of it. You could attempt—" I concurred. "You would fail." Elizabeth's lawyer was very meticulous. "But you are welcome to squander your money on attorneys if you desire." She glared at me with pure loathing. And for an instant, I saw precisely who she really was. Not the enchanting woman who had entered my door 4 years ago. Not the affectionate wife she had feigned to be. Just someone angry that her carefully arranged plans had collapsed. "This is not over," she said. "Yes," I replied. "It is." I located Michael on the deck, his hands gripping the wooden railing so tightly his knuckles had turned white. The evening air was cool, carrying the aroma of the jasmine Elizabeth had planted along the fence 22 years ago. It should have been tranquil. Instead, it felt like standing in the center of a cyclone. "Son," I said gently, stepping outside. He did not turn around. "How long have you known about Sophia, about what she desired?" "From the initial supper," he released a shaky breath. "And you never said anything. Would you have listened?" I moved to stand beside him, both of us gazing out at the yard Elizabeth had loved. "You were in love. Happy for the first time in years. What was I supposed to say? I think your girlfriend is a fortune hunter. You would have chosen her and excluded me from your life. Hey, so instead you just let me marry her. Let me commit my life to someone you thought was using me." The pain in his voice made my chest hurt. I hoped I was wrong. I prayed I was wrong. And I made sure that if I was not wrong, you would be protected. "Protected," he repeated bitterly. "Is that what this is? Because it feels like you have been controlling my life, deciding what I get to know, treating me like I cannot make my own decisions. The trust was your mother's idea, Michael, not mine. That made him turn. His eyes were bloodshot, devastated. Mom made a trust to keep my wife from accessing family money. Your mother made a trust to protect you from anyone who might try to use you for what we built together. She grew up poor, watched her own mother lose everything to a stepfather who married her for money. She swore it would never happen to you. I pulled out my wallet and removed the small, worn photograph I had carried for 16 years. Elizabeth, in the hospital, thin and pale, but smiling, holding Michael's hand. He had been 21 then, about to start his senior year of college, still believing his mother would defeat the illness. 5 months before she died. Your mom spent 4 afternoons with her lawyer. She was very specific about what she wanted. The residence, the investments, the life coverage, all of it protected in a trust that you would control when the time was right. She made me promise to guard it until you were established in your own life. Michael took the photo with trembling hands. She never told me. She did not want you to feel different from your friends. Did not want you to grow up thinking about money and inheritance. She wanted you to build your own life, your own career, your own character. The trust was just meant to be there as a foundation, a safety net, and the premarital agreement. I took a deep breath. That was me, after I met Sophia, after I saw how she looked at this residence, at the life we built. I knew I needed another layer of protection. I am sorry I did not tell you my concerns directly. I should have. But Michael, I have watched you dismiss my worries before. Remember when you were 26 and dating that woman who borrowed $6,000 from you and never repaid it? He flinched. Emily, that was different. She was going through a hard time. You told me I was being too suspicious when I suggested you get the loan in writing. She disappeared 4 weeks later. Or when you were 29 and your friend Dylan convinced you to invest in his venture. He needed capital. He needed $14,000 of your money, which vanished when the business collapsed 7 months later. You told me I did not understand entrepreneurship, that I did not trust your judgment. Michael was quiet, his jaw working. We both knew I was right. My son had a generous heart, maybe too generous. He wanted to see the best in people, wanted to believe everyone was as genuine as he was. Elizabeth had known that, too. It was one of the things she had loved most about him, and one of the things that had terrified her. Behind us, the deck door slid open. Sophia stood there, and something about her had changed. The careful composure was gone. Her hair was slightly disheveled, her makeup smudged under one eye. She looked cornered, dangerous. I can hear you out here. You know, she said, talking about me like I'm some kind of monster. We are talking about facts, I said calmly. Facts you have been avoiding for 4 years. She stepped fully onto the deck. Fine. You want facts? Here is a fact. I did look at this residence and think about what it would be like to live here. I did hope that maybe someday we would inherit it. That is not a crime. Carl, that is normal. Hoping to inherit someday is normal. I agreed. Plotting to move in while I'm still alive. Trying to convince Michael to pressure me into signing things over. Researching ways to challenge estate planning. That is different. Her eyes widened. I never researched anything. Your browser history says otherwise. I have excellent security on my home network. Sophia, I have seen every search you have made while connected to my Wi-Fi. Estate trust loopholes. How to challenge a premarital agreement. Rights of surviving spouse in California. You have been planning this for over a year. Michael's head snapped toward her. Sophia, tell me that is not true. She opened her mouth, closed it, then laughed. It was a sharp, ugly sound. What did you expect? You think I wanted to stay in that cramped apartment forever? You think I wanted to watch you go to work every day while your father sits on a fortune and treats me like I am trash. I never treated you like trash. I said, I treated you with the exact amount of warmth you deserved, which was very little, because you decided I was not good enough for your son the second you met me, because I did not come from money like your precious Elizabeth did. My wife came from nothing, I said, my voice hardening. She grew up in a mobile home park. Her father was a mechanic who died when she was 13. Her mother cleaned houses. Elizabeth worked her way through college, through graduate school, built a career as an accountant. Every dollar we had, we earned together. So do not dare use her as some kind of privileged comparison. Sophia blinked, clearly not having expected that. She had probably assumed Elizabeth came from wealth, that I had married into money rather than building it. The difference between you and Elizabeth, I continued, is that she never expected anything handed to her. She never looked at what others had and felt entitled to it. She worked. She saved. She sacrificed. You have done none of those things. I sacrificed for this marriage. Sophia shot back. I gave up my independence, my own apartment, my own life to build something with Michael. You gave up a $700 a month studio apartment to move into Michael's paid-off apartment. I said, that is not sacrifice. That is upgrade. And you have not built anything. You have spent Michael's money while contributing nothing. No income, no savings, no partnership, just consumption. Dad, Michael said weakly, but he did not defend her. That silence spoke volumes. Sophia's face was flushed now, her breathing quick. This is exactly what you wanted. Is it not to turn him against me? To destroy what we have? What you have, I said quietly, was built on lies and manipulation. I did not destroy it. I just shone a light on what was already there. You son of a, she hissed. Then she turned to Michael, her voice shifting, becoming pleading. Michael, honey, please do not let him do this. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can talk through everything. But you have to choose, me or him. It was the ultimatum I had known was coming. The final card she had to play. She was betting that Michael loved her more than he loved the truth. Michael looked at her for a long moment. His eyes were filled with tears, his face marked with pain. This was the moment where everything would change, and we all knew it. When we first started dating, he said slowly, you told me you worked in advertising, that you had left your job because the company was toxic and you were looking for the right fit. Do you remember that? Sophia nodded warily. I have been paying bills for almost 4 years now, our joint account, and I just realized, sitting here, that I have never seen a single deposit from you. Not one. You told me last holiday season that you had gotten a freelance contract, that you would be contributing soon. Where is that money, Sophia? He swallowed hard. It fell through. In the contract before that, in the interview you had in October that you said went so well, in the networking event in July that was supposed to lead to opportunities. The job market is tough right now, she said defensively. For 4 years, his voice cracked. Sophia, I have worked 50-hour weeks for 4 years while you stayed home. I thought you were looking. I thought you were trying. Was any of it real? The silence stretched. She could have lied again, could have manufactured more excuses. Instead, something in her broke, or maybe just stopped caring about pretending. I did not want to work, she said flatly. I wanted to be taken care of. Is that so terrible? I thought you had money. Real money. I thought we would have the kind of life where I did not have to work some meaningless office job. And then I realized all the money was locked up in your father's control. And I've been trapped in this limbo ever since. Michael actually took a step back, like her words had physically pushed him. You married me because you thought I was rich. I married you because you were kind and I cared about you. And yes, because I thought we would have financial security. That is not some terrible crime. People consider finances when they get married. That is real life. But you lied, he said, his voice barely a whisper. About everything. About wanting to work. About your feelings. About who you really were. I did not lie about caring for you, but you lied about everything else. He ran his hands through his hair. God, Dad was right. He was right about all of it. Sophia's expression shifted from defensive to furious. Fine. Yes, your father was right. I wanted the money. I wanted this residence. I wanted a life that did not involve pinching pennies and worrying about bills. And I thought marrying you would give me that. Are you happy now? Is this what you wanted to hear? The devastation on Michael's face was almost too painful to watch. This was my son, learning that the woman he had pledged his life to had been playing a role, had seen him as a means to an end rather than a partner. I think you should leave, Michael said quietly. What I think you should pack some things and leave. Go stay with your sister or get a hotel. I need you out of here so I can think. Sophia's fury crystallized into something cold and calculated. This is still half my home. Michael, we are married. You cannot just kick me out. Actually, I said, the apartment is in Michael's name only. He bought it before you met. You have no legal claim to it. Her head whipped toward me. You looked that up, too. I know every asset my son owns and how it is titled. That is not control, Sophia. That is being a careful parent. She looked between us, and for the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. She had lost, and she knew it. If I leave now, I am not coming back, she said, a last desperate threat. Michael met her eyes. I know. The sound of Sophia's suitcase wheels scraping across the wooden floor echoed through the residence like a final nail. It was 9:30 p.m., and I sat in the den while Michael stood in the doorway of his old bedroom upstairs, watching his wife pack 4 years of marriage into 2 bags. I heard her footsteps, quick and angry, moving from room to room. A drawer slammed, then another. She was taking her time, maybe hoping Michael would crack, would tell her to stop, would take it all back. He did not. When she finally came down the stairs, she looked nothing like the polished woman who had sat across from me hours earlier. Her hair was pulled into a messy ponytail, her face blotchy and streaked with mascara. She dragged both suitcases behind her, refusing to look at either of us. At the door, she finally paused. Michael, she said, her voice breaking. I need money for a hotel. I do not have anywhere else to go tonight. He pulled out his wallet slowly and handed her 4 $20 bills. $80. The gesture was so small, so final, not enough for more than a night or two at a cheap motel. She stared at the money in her hand like it was an insult. $80 after 4 years. You have access to our joint account, Michael said quietly. There is about $900 in there. Take what you need. What I need, her laugh was bitter. What I need is for you to wake up and realize your father has poisoned you against me. But I guess that is not happening. She grabbed the doorknob, yanked it open. The cool night air rushed in, carrying the scent of rain. She stood there for a moment, silhouetted in the doorway, and I thought maybe she would try one more time to manipulate him, to find some crack in his resolve. Instead, she just left. The door clicked shut behind her, and seconds later, we heard her Mercedes start up and pull away. Silence that filled the residence was deafening. Michael stood frozen in the same spot, staring at the closed door. I watched his shoulders start to shake, and then he crumpled, just collapsed onto the bottom step of the staircase, his face in his hands, and the sobs came, deep, wrenching sounds that tore at my heart. I moved to sit beside him, and he immediately turned into me like he was a child again. My 65-year-old body folded around my 37-year-old son, and I held him while he broke apart. I am so stupid, he choked out between sobs. I am so stupid. Dad, how did I not see it? You loved her, I said simply. Love makes us see what we want to see. 4 years. 4 years of my life gone. Wasted on someone who was just using me. Not wasted, I said firmly. You learned something about people, about yourself, about what you really want in a partner. That is not waste, son. That is life. He pulled back, wiping at his eyes with his sleeve. You tried to warn me, not directly, but I could feel it, your disapproval. And I told myself you were just being overprotective, that you could not let go. But you saw her right from the start. You saw exactly who she was. I have had more years to learn about people, I said, and I had the advantage of not being in love with her. It is easier to see the truth when your heart is not involved. He let out a shaky laugh. Mom would have seen it too, would she not? The first time Sophia walked through that door, your mother would have had her number. Elizabeth had a sixth sense about people. Michael leaned back against the staircase, exhausted. Tell me about the trust. I want to know everything. No more secrets. So, I did. We sat there on the stairs, and I explained every detail. How Elizabeth had spent those last months of her life planning for a future she would not be part of. How she had worked with her lawyer to create something unbreakable, designed specifically to protect Michael from the kind of person who would see him as a paycheck rather than a partner. The trust holds the residence, all the investment accounts Mom and I built together, and the life insurance policy. It is worth about $1.5 million total. Michael's eyes widened. That much your mother was very good with money. We lived modestly, invested carefully. The residence alone is worth about $700,000. The rest is in diversified investments that have grown steadily over the years. And it all comes to me when I die, or when I choose to transfer control, which I was planning to do on your 42nd birthday. I paused. Your mother and I thought that was a good age, old enough to have learned about life, young enough to still benefit from financial security. So, 5 more years. That was the plan. But honestly, son, after tonight, I am thinking we should sit down with the lawyer sooner. You should understand exactly what you have, what it means, how to protect it going forward. He nodded slowly. Processing. The premarital agreement Sophia signed. Would it have held up if we had stayed, married absolutely? It was airtight. Even if you had been married for 60 years, the assets in the trust would have remained separate property. She could never have touched them. She must have been furious when she realized. That is why she broke into the basement. She had been trying to figure out the code for months. I am sure. Probably watching me enter it, trying to guess the pattern. What is the code? Michael asked. Your mother's birthday. 041962. April 19th, 1962. His eyes filled with tears again. Of course it was. Everything I have done. Michael, every decision I have made about protecting these assets, it has been about honoring your mother's wishes. She wanted you taken care of. She wanted you to have choices in life, to never be trapped by financial desperation. And she wanted to make sure that whoever you ended up with loved you for you, not for what you could provide. Sophia failed that test pretty spectacularly. Yes, she did. I put my hand on his shoulder. But you know what? Better to find out after 4 years than after 40. Better to find out before you had children together, before your lives were even more entangled. He was quiet for a long moment. Do you think she ever loved me at all? Even a little? That question broke my heart more than anything else. I do not know, son. Maybe in her own way, but it was not the kind of love that builds a life. It was the kind of love that has conditions and expectations and an exit strategy. I gave her everything I had, he whispered. I worked myself exhausted to give her the life she wanted, and it was never going to be enough. Was it? Because what she really wanted was in that basement, and I could not give her that. You could not give her something that was not yours to give, and she knew that. She has known it for a while. I think that is why she's been getting more desperate, more pushy about moving in here, about getting me to change things. Michael stood up slowly, like his bones ached. I need to see it. The basement. I need to see what Mom left for me. I nodded and led him to the basement door. The keypad still showed the last access time. 14:25 yesterday, right when I'd been in my meeting in Chicago, right when Sophia had finally cracked the code. I entered the numbers, and the lock clicked open. The basement was not finished like the rest of the residence. Concrete floor, exposed beams, but organized meticulously. Filing cabinets lined one wall, labeled clearly personal documents, financial records, insurance, medical history, property deeds. But what drew Michael's attention was the other side of the room. A wall of shelves holding carefully preserved photo albums, boxes of Elizabeth's belongings, her favorite books, her jewelry box, her painting supplies. You kept everything, Michael said, his voice thick with emotion. I could not let go. This was my space to remember her, to keep her close. That is the real reason I never let you down here. Not just the documents, but this. I was not ready to share. I was not ready to see you go through her things and relive the loss. Michael walked to the shelves and picked up a photo album. He opened it to a random page. And there was Elizabeth, maybe 26 years old, laughing at the camera, her hair wild in the wind, young and healthy and full of life. I forget sometimes what she looked like before the illness, he said softly. I forget that she was a whole person before she was sick. She was extraordinary. I said, brilliant and funny and so damn stubborn. When she decided something was right, there was no changing her mind. And she decided that protecting you was right. She poured everything she had left into making sure you would be okay. He set the album down and opened one of the filing cabinets. Inside were folders, each labeled in Elizabeth's neat handwriting trust documents: will, life insurance, property titles, investment accounts, and in the very front, a manila envelope with Michael's name on it. He pulled it out with trembling hands. What is this, a letter? She wrote it 3 weeks before she died. Told me to give it to you when you were ready. I have been holding on to it, waiting for the right moment. Can I read it now? It is yours, son. It has always been yours. He opened the envelope and pulled out several pages covered in Elizabeth's handwriting. His eyes moved across the words, and I watched tears begin to fall. He read in silence for several minutes while I stood there, remembering the day Elizabeth had written those words. How weak she had been, how determined. When he finished, he looked up at me. She knew even then. She knew I would need protection. She knew someone might try to use me. Your mother understood the world, Michael, the good and the bad, and she loved you enough to prepare for both. He folded the letter carefully and held it against his chest. I miss her so much. Dad, me too. Son, every single day. We stood there in the basement, surrounded by the physical evidence of a life lived, a love that had transcended death. Elizabeth had been gone for 16 years, but she was still protecting her son, still guiding us both, and finally, standing there together. Michael and I were not divided by secrets anymore. We were united by the truth and by the love of a woman who had known exactly what we would need to survive, even if she could not be here to give it to us herself. 7 months had passed since that night. 7 months since Sophia had walked out with her 2 suitcases and $80. 7 months of healing, of rebuilding, of learning what life looked like on the other side of deception. The divorce had been swift and, thanks to the premarital agreement, relatively painless. Sophia had tried at first to challenge it, hiring a lawyer who had taken one look at the documents and advised her to accept the settlement offered. She had walked away with exactly what she had brought into the marriage, nothing but her personal belongings and a car loan she could not afford. Last I had heard, she had moved to Texas to live with her sister. Michael had blocked her number after she had called 20 times in the first week, alternating between begging him to reconsider and screaming about what a mistake he was making. He did not take her back. Not once did he waver. Today was Sunday, and it had become our day. Every Sunday, Michael came to the residence for dinner. Sometimes we cooked together, attempting recipes that Elizabeth used to make, and usually failing in ways that made us laugh. Sometimes we ordered takeout and sat in the den watching whatever game was on. But mostly, we talked. I met someone, Michael said. Cutting into the roast chicken, I had somehow managed not to burn. I looked up, surprised. Oh, nothing serious yet. Just coffee a couple of times. Her name is Laura. She is a landscape designer. We met at that conference I went to last month. And he smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes for the first time in months. And she paid for her own coffee. Insisted on it, actually. Said she had a rule about always paying her own way on first dates. I felt something warm bloom in my chest. Smart woman. She asked about my family, and I told her the truth. All of it. The divorce, the reasons, everything. I figured if that scared her off, better to know now. What did she say? She said her brother went through something similar. Got taken advantage of by someone who saw dollar signs instead of a person. She understood. We ate in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Michael set down his fork and looked at me seriously. I want to apologize. Dad, for what? For not trusting you. For all those times I chose Sophia over your concerns. For making you feel like you could not be honest with me. I shook my head. You do not need to apologize for loving someone, Michael, even if they did not deserve it. But I do need to apologize for not seeing what was right in front of me. For being so desperate to prove I could make my own choices that I ignored obvious red flags. He paused. I have been thinking a lot about Mom lately, about what she must have gone through, making all those plans while she was dying. How scared she must have been, knowing she would not be here to protect me herself. Terrified. I admitted. Some nights she would wake up crying, worried about what would happen to you, worried that I would die too, and you would be alone, worried that someone would come along and undo everything we had built for you. The trust was not about control. It was about love. Everything your mother did was about love, even the hard things, especially the hard things. Michael reached into his pocket and pulled out the letter Elizabeth had written to him, now creased and worn from being read dozens of times. She wrote something in here that I keep coming back to. She said, "Real love does not demand access to bank accounts or property deeds. Real love is built in small moments, in shared struggles, in choosing each other, even when it is hard. She was a wise woman. She was, and she was right. Sophia never chose me when it was hard. She chose me when she thought it would be easy, when she thought I came with a fortune attached. The second she realized the money was not accessible, she started planning her exit strategy. But you learned from it. That is what matters. I did. I learned what I do not want. And I learned that I would rather be alone than be with someone who is only there for what I can provide. I raised my glass. That is worth drinking to. He clinked his glass against mine, and we both took a sip. The wine was a bottle Elizabeth had bought 22 years ago, one she had been saving for a special occasion. I had been saving it too, waiting for the right moment. This felt right. I have been thinking about the trust, Michael said, about what we should do with it. What do you mean you said Mom wanted me to have choices? To never be trapped by money, or the lack of it. But I have been working as a designer for 14 years now. I built my own career, my own savings. I do not need the trust money to survive. Your mother wanted you to have security, Michael. That was the whole point. I know. But I also think she would want the money to mean something, to do something good. He leaned forward. What if we set up a scholarship fund for kids who lose a parent to illness? Help them pay for college the way Mom's trust has helped me? I felt tears prick at my eyes. She would have loved that idea. We could call it the Elizabeth Harlan Memorial Scholarship. Keep enough in the trust to maintain the residence and provide a safety net, but use the rest to help kids who are going through what I went through. Your mother would be so proud of you right now. I hope so. I also hope she would be proud that I finally learned what she was trying to teach me. That the best legacy is not money. It is character. It is choosing the right people to let into your life. It is protecting what matters and letting go of what does not. We finished dinner and moved to the den, where I showed Michael the progress I had been making on organizing Elizabeth's things. We decided together to go through the basement, to sort what we wanted to keep and what we could donate. It was time to let some of it go, to stop treating that room like a shrine and start treating it like a connection to someone we loved. I want to keep her art supplies, Michael said, pulling out a box of oil paints. Maybe try my hand at painting. She always said I had her eye for color. Take whatever you want. This is all yours now, son. Not because of a trust or a legal document, but because you are her child. This is your inheritance, the real one. He looked around the basement at the carefully preserved pieces of his mother's life. You know what the strangest part is? Sophia spent 4 years trying to get access to money and property. And she never once asked about Mom. Never asked what she was like, what she cared about, what made her special. She saw the assets, but never the person behind them. That tells you everything you need to know about Sophia. It does. He picked up a photo of Elizabeth holding him as a baby, both of them laughing at something off camera. This is what I want in my life. Dad, this kind of love, the kind that lasts past death, that builds legacies, not in dollars, but in memories and lessons and moments like this. You will find it, I assured him, now that you know what to look for. As we locked up the basement that night, Michael paused at the keypad. Are you going to change the code? I thought about it. No. I think I will keep it as Mom's birthday. That way, every time I enter it, I remember why all of this matters. Not the money or the property, but the love behind it. We walked upstairs together, and I made coffee while Michael loaded the dishwasher. A routine we had developed over these Sunday dinners. It felt normal, comfortable, like we were building something new on the foundation Elizabeth had laid for us. "Dad," Michael said as he was getting ready to leave. "Thank you." "For what?" "For protecting me even when I did not want to be protected. For seeing what I could not see. For keeping Mom's promises even when it meant I was angry at you." I pulled him into a hug. I would do it all again in a heartbeat. After he left, I stood in the den and looked at the photo of Elizabeth that I kept on the mantle. She was 37 in the picture, her smile bright and genuine, her eyes full of life. "We did it," I told her quietly. "He is okay. He is going to be okay." And I could almost hear her response. That mix of relief and pride she always showed when one of our plans worked out. She had been gone 16 years, but she had never really left. She was in every protected asset, in every lesson Michael had learned, in every Sunday dinner we shared. The trust had protected the money, but Elizabeth's real legacy was something no document could capture. It was the wisdom she had passed down, the love she had instilled, the character she had helped build in her son. Sophia had walked away with nothing because she had never understood what really mattered. She had seen the residence, the accounts, the life insurance policy, and thought that was the treasure. She had missed the real wealth entirely. As I climbed the stairs to bed that night, I felt something I had not felt in years. Peace. Not just the absence of conflict, but the presence of something deeper. The knowledge that I had kept my promises, that Elizabeth's love had transcended death, that our son was finally free to build the life he deserved. The basement door was locked, but what it protected was not really about money anymore. It was about memory, about honor, about a love story that had started 42 years ago and was still writing its final chapters. And in the end, that was the only legacy that truly mattered. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.